Diddy Kong Racing, the beloved fan-favorite video game that somehow never got a sequel, is completely broken. So much that what takes the average player 12.5 hours to beat only takes speedrunners close to 40 minutes, with the current world record time as of this video being held by speedrunner Mr. Ponytale at 36 minutes and 49 seconds, the only sub 37-minute time. To beat the game in such a fast time, speedrunners have to pull off a number of skips, glitches, and game-breaking techniques that really show just how broken Diddy Kong Racing is, like how you can warp from here to here in a matter of seconds, and I'm going to attempt to break it all down in this video. But before I do, for legal reasons, I have to mention that this video is sponsored by bananas. Banana. And if you like bananas, then you should like this video. Now, let's get bananas. Alright, so there are three, let's say, administrative items that need to be mentioned first before jumping into the run. The first is that all the top speedrunners play the Japanese version of the game. The difference between playing the Japanese version instead of the North American and PAL versions is pretty significant, as speedrunners only need to collect 11 balloons to beat the Japanese version, compared to the North American and PAL version, which requires 16 balloons to beat. I'll explain why this is later in the video. And if you were playing the North American or PAL version, you need to make sure it's not version 1.0. Otherwise, the majority of the glitches will crash the game. You can tell if it's version 1.0 or 1.1 based on the stamped numbers on the back of the cartridge. 2 numbers mean version 1.0, and 2 numbers and a letter mean version 1.1. So if you wanted to submit a run for the Diddy Kong Racing Any % category to speedrun.com, which is the run discussed in this video, then your best bet would be to play on the Japanese cartridge, which only has the one version. Emulators are not allowed, so don't even think about it. However, I will be attempting the skips used in the speedrun myself on an emulator. Secondly, it's recommended to play as TT, so much that it's even stated in the speedrun rules. TT is an unlockable character that requires beating his ghost in time trial mode on every track. What makes TT the most desirable character for speedrunners are his stats. TT has the highest speed of all the characters, and has decent turning, aka not the worst, which arguably makes him the best character in the game. And the last item to mention is the music, or lack thereof. The music in the game affects the lag of the game, and so the most serious of speedrunners will go into audio options to turn off the music entirely. Turning off music will result in a faster time in any of the Diddy Kong Racing speedrun categories. But honestly, I don't know how people can play like that. It would be so painful. Diddy Kong Racing has one of the best soundtracks out there, and for me is a huge part as to why the game is so amazing. But rest assured, I'll only be using Diddy Kong Racing music in this video. Now let's get into the run itself. After a 1-and-5-second unskippable cutscene, speedrunners immediately talk to Taj and switch their vehicle to the plane. From there, they fly their way to this area of the overworld and grab these 2 easy golden balloons. Golden balloons are required to access the worlds and tracks, which is why they are collected. These golden balloons are also conveniently placed near the lighthouse, which is the location of the first out-of-bounds trick of the run, known as the lighthouse skip. This is a precise skip that involves clipping under the beach here near the lighthouse and out of bounds, which to do requires having the right speed, height, and angle. To get the right speed, speedrunners will start to do barrel rolls when flying towards the lighthouse, as barrel rolls build up speed, and are needed to clip out of bounds in a few different areas in the run. A good way to track your speed is using the speedometer. It's important for this part that you don't fly too far towards the ocean, otherwise you will hit an invisible wall and lose your speed. So you'll want to make sure to turn right before hitting the invisible wall. Next is the height and angle when approaching the beach, and the two pretty much go hand in hand. After turning towards the beach, speedrunners make sure they are at the right height, which from what I can tell there are no visual cues to determine this, and then they dip down towards the beach at an angle I can only describe as slightly less than 45 degrees, and then barrel rolling before they clip through the beach. Dipping down towards the beach at a 45-degree angle is too steep, and while you may be able to clip through the beach at this angle, the water will just bounce you back inbounds. But at slightly less than 45 degrees, you can clip into the beach, as long as you make sure to barrel roll just before clipping. And then once you clip in, you'll want to hold A and up, which helps you stay out of bounds. Naturally, I want to try this lighthouse skip myself, and this is how it went. Okay. Oh, we hit an invisible wall. Ugh. Okay, that did not go well. It did not go well. Unfortunately, I don't have TT unlocked, so I thought using Diddy was a good idea, but having high speed is important for pulling off the skip. So I then switched to the fastest character available, Pipsy. It still took many tries, but after a good 30 minutes, I finally did it. Oh my god, I did it! I actually did it! Whoa. As hard as this was, I will say trying to understand Japanese is even harder. But why are we even doing this? Well, it's because speedrunners use the skip to get out of bounds so they can access the first Whiz Pig Race. A race that in a normal run would require beating all the tracks of the 4 main worlds in both the regular races and the silver coin races, and beating each of the main world bosses twice, which in total is 40 races, can be accessed within minutes of playing the game and without completing a single race. Just make sure to not accidentally enter Dragon Forest, as it's on the way to the Whiz Pig Race in Out of Bounds Land. It's pretty cool that the first race in this run is against WizPig, and anyone who has played Diddy Kong Racing knows this is not an easy race to win. But for speedrunners who have every detail of every racetrack memorized, this is just another race. To really put it in perspective, where I struggle just to win this race, Mr. Ponytale almost laps WizPig in his any percent world record run, something I never thought was possible. After beating WizPig the first time, the almost 5 minutes ending one cutscene is triggered, which consists of a party, and these people know how to party, followed by WizPig crashing the party and then credits. But 5 minutes is way too long, especially in a speedrun. So instead, speedrunners reset the game as soon as the cutscene is triggered. At this point, the game registers that the first WizPig race has been completed, so there's no need to watch the cutscene. Instead, you can just reset and jump back into the game in the overworld here, saving a lot of time. From here, speedrunners immediately head to Dino Domain, the dry, prehistoric, and first world of the game, making sure to collect the golden balloon on the way. This brings the total golden balloon count to 3. In Dino Domain, well, really the whole run, there is a very specific path that speedrunners follow as they have determined the most optimal path to save time. But in the case of Dino Domain, speedrunners will complete the tracks in this order: Jungle Falls, Ancient Lake, Fossil Canyon, and then Hot Top Volcano. This is because going into Dino Domain, they have 3 golden balloons, so the only levels that can be accessed are Jungle Falls, Ancient Lake, or Fossil Canyon. Speedrunners want to avoid diagonal movement between the tracks as it takes longer compared to going from one door to the next, which is why they don't start at Fossil Canyon. Otherwise, they would lose time moving in a long diagonal from Jungle Falls to Hot Top Volcano. This is why these 2 golden balloons were collected by the lighthouse, so speedrunners can access Jungle Falls first. And it's the same for when racing the tracks. Speedrunners have determined the most optimal path for each track that ensures they hit every zipper and max out their bananas as quickly as possible. If you haven't played Diddy Kong Racing before, then you should know there are bananas scattered throughout the tracks that are very important to collect, as each banana increases your speed by 2.5%. This is capped at 10 bananas, so by collecting 10 bananas, you can increase your speed by 25%, which is huge. The Jungle Falls, Ancient Lake, and Fossil Canyon races in this run, while impressive to watch, are fairly uneventful. But there are 2 skips utilized in these races to save on time, as well as in Hot Top Volcano, but I'll be discussing that track separately shortly. The first of these 2 skips is called the Race Beginning Restart. When you play a track for the first time, there is an unskippable cutscene that plays, but speedrunners of course found a way to get around this. As soon as the race starts, if you pause the game and then restart the race, you'll now start after the cutscene and just before the get ready prompt of the race. This happens because by restarting the race, now you're technically at the track for the second time, which allows you to press A as soon as the camera panning starts and skip the cutscene entirely. Restarting the race here saves a different amount of time for different tracks, and the reason for that is because of the different amount of time it takes for the camera from its starting position to pan to the player. Some tracks have the camera start from really far away, or the camera is set to take a really wide arcing path to the player. This is a chart that speedrunners put together to show the time differences. However, these times were measured using an emulator, and so the times are not completely accurate to what we see when playing on the Nintendo 64. It's very specific and technical, but essentially the reason emulation is not accurate to the Nintendo 64 has to do with the frame rate, and that's why emulators are not allowed when submitting a run for the speedrun category. Next is the cutscene skip, and this is for the cutscene that plays after the race has been completed. After each race, there is a 22 to 23 second cutscene where Taj flies down and gives you a golden balloon, and once triggered, this cutscene is unskippable. But again, speedrunners have found a way around this. Technically speaking, after each race, there is one frame where the game considers the race finished, but you can still pause on this frame. A good indicator of this is that you will see the placement on the screen and still hear that winning jingle while the game is paused. And by pausing on this frame and selecting return to lobby, you're able to skip that 22 to 23 second cutscene that was supposed to be unskippable, which I'm sure Taj doesn't love because that's a lot of airtime. Literally. Selecting return to lobby takes you back to the lobby of that world. And so right after Fossil Canyon, speedrunners head to Hot Top Volcano, and this track is quite unique from the rest in Dino Domain, and every track in the game. And by unique, I mean broken. In Hot Top Volcano, there are 3 parts of the track where you can get out of bounds, and the best part to clip out of bounds depends on where you are in the any percent speedrun. For the first Hot Top Volcano race, the best part of the track to clip out of bounds is through the lava here, just before the hanging rock in the second section of lava. This is the best part to clip through as it allows you to collect some bananas before getting out of bounds, which as I mentioned earlier gives you more speed. To get out of bounds here, speedrunners use a blue balloon, which gives you a speed boost, plus a barrel roll to get underneath the lava and the wall that extends below the lava. It is possible to do this without the speed boost, but it's much harder and slower. What's also interesting to note is that when in the barrel roll state, you can ignore fluid collision from the lava, or water, or the fog-looking stuff in the final WizPig 2 race, making barrel rolling a very important technique. If struggling to get out of bounds here like I was, then you can stack up on blue balloons to a level 2 or level 3, which gives you an even stronger speed boost to help ensure you get underneath the lava far enough to get out of bounds. But for professionals like Mr. Ponytale, they only need the 1 speed boost. I for one couldn't even do this with a level 3 speed boost. Once out of bounds, you'll want to stay out of bounds until just before the very end of the race, which can be a little tricky to do, but if you just follow the map, you should be good. However, it's not that simple. The best way to explain this next part is with this diagram, which I grabbed from a tutorial YouTube video by speedrunner Morks on the Diddy Kong Racing Any% speedrun. Morks is definitely a pro at all this stuff.
This stuff. stuff.
and even holds the 8th spot on the leaderboard in this run. So I'd recommend watching his video if you want to learn more of the technical details of the run, or want to seriously attempt this run yourself. I've linked his video in the description. As you can see in the diagram, there are 2 checkpoints on the opposite end of the track, as well as a line in the middle of the 2 checkpoints, and it's important to cross this line. Otherwise, TT will tell you that you're going the wrong way. A good indicator if you're doing this correctly is if you see the arrows here. Once you reach the checkpoint on the bottom of the track, that's when you'll want to fly back inbound and race to cross the finish line. What happens when you beat all 4 tracks of a world is you unlock the boss race. Each world has a unique boss that you must race, like Bluey the Walrus, Blubber the Octopus, or Smokey the Dragon, but neither of these bosses will be raced in this speedrun. The only boss being raced besides WizPig is Tricky the Triceratops, and I can't help but make a connection to Tricky from Star Fox Adventures. Is Tricky in Diddy Kong Racing just Tricky from Star Fox Adventures all grown up? With all 4 races in Dino Domain completed, the next race is against Tricky, and speedrunners utilize a glitch called the Tricky Skip to win this race. How this glitch works is there's a specific path to take at the beginning of the race that will confuse the game into thinking that you're driving the wrong way, even though you're driving the right way. And what the game does is reverse the invisible checkpoints. So the first checkpoint you hit in the race will actually be the last checkpoint, which is the finish line, thus ending the race. There is some RNG with this glitch though, so there's no guarantee that you'll pull it off on your first attempt or even second or third. In Mr. Ponytale's case, it took him 2 attempts in his world record run. I can't really explain the specific path other than needing to turn around at the start of the race and then hitting the wall here, and then from there just keep driving forward, staying close to the wall. You'll know you did it right when you get the wrong way message as you're driving forward, and then soon enough you'll hit the first checkpoint, which is actually the last checkpoint, and win the race. Tricky will then praise you in an unskippable cutscene. I tried the skip myself, and even though I felt I had no idea what I was doing, I eventually managed to pull it off. In Diddy Kong Racing, once the world's boss has been beaten, the silver coin challenges for that world are unlocked, meaning you have to play the 4 same tracks again, except this time, you need to collect 8 silver Nintendo coins scattered throughout the track and still make first place. And some of these coins are placed in less ideal areas, making for a greater challenge. And that's exactly what happens in this speedrun. I'm going to skip over the races themselves because again, while they are impressive to watch, nothing really crazy happens. In the case of Hot Top Volcano, the same out of bounds glitch is utilized, except speedrunners clip out and back into bounds at different parts of the track, and that's just because it's the most optimal way to collect the silver coins and win the race. With the silver coin challenges of Dino Domain completed, it's time to face off against Tricky again. And it's pretty much the same race from the first time around, except this time there's more tree trunks to maneuver around, but the reversing the checkpoints glitch remains the same. When you beat a boss for the second time in Diddy Kong Racing, you earn a piece of the WizPig amulet, where collecting all 4 pieces unlocks the WizPig 1 race. But speedrunners and us don't really care about that because they already did that race. But what collecting a piece of the amulet also does, and what we do care about, is that it unlocks the trophy race for that world. And this leads to what is called the trophy storage glitch, a glitch that can get speedrunners to the final world in about 30 minutes. How the trophy storage glitch works is that when in the middle of the Dino Domain trophy race, which has been unlocked since Tricky was beaten a second time, you can interrupt the trophy race by performing what is called the wrong warp. I will get into what a wrong warp is shortly, but by performing this, you'll be warped to a location outside of Dino Domain and are free to travel to any world. And if you complete a race in another world after wrong warping, the game will think you've completed the trophy race in that world and give you the world's trophy, as the game only checks where you finished the trophy race when determining where to give out the trophy. This glitch, in connection to wrong warp, is probably the most important on the speedrun because it saves on so much time. There's a 5th world in the game called Future Funland that is only unlocked after collecting all 4 world's trophies. In this 5th and final world are 4 more tracks, and it's where you face off against WizPig for the final time to beat the game. To highlight how important this glitch is, let's say for example this is a regular playthrough of the game, and we just unlocked the trophy race of Dino Domain. To earn the world's trophy, we'd have to play the 4 Dino Domain tracks again in trophy race. But there's 3 other worlds that still need to be played, 4 tracks in each. So that would mean to earn the trophy of the remaining worlds, that 36 races would need to be completed. Because for each world, that's 4 races to unlock the silver coin challenge, 4 races to unlock the trophy race, and then 4 more races to beat the trophy race. Multiplied by 3, and that's 36. Plus the 4 races of Dino Domain's trophy race. That's 40 races in total to unlock Future Funland. But by utilizing the powerful trophy storage glitch, speedrunners can cut that number down to only 16, if they're lucky. And that's because there's more RNG involved in the speedrun, which I'll explain in a few seconds. But first, let's talk about wrong warp. Wrong warp, as I mentioned earlier, is used to perform the even bigger trophy storage glitch, and will warp you to a location outside of Dino Domain where you are free to travel around, and this can only be performed in Hot Top Volcano. To do this, you would clip out a bounce here like before, and then make your way to the loading zone under the finish line, using the map as a guide. The trigger for this wrong warp is precise, but the goal is to hit a specific spot just under the finish line here that will trigger the loading zone, where the game will fade out and attempt to bring you somewhere else. Attempting this on the North American or PAL 1.0 versions will crash the game, and on the 1.1 versions, the game will always bring you to the overworld on the Taj map. format, the same place you arrive when starting a new or existing file. But on the Japanese version of the game, there are 3 different results after wrong warping, and it's random. There's a 75% chance you will warp to Dragon Forest in a car, a 12.5% chance you will warp to the overworld, or a 12.5% chance you will warp to Dragon Forest in a plane. Dragon Forest is a world that requires 16 golden balloons to enter, and this is why the any percent 11 balloon speedrun is only possible in the Japanese version, because only in the Japanese version is it possible to warp into Dragon Forest in a plane, bypassing the 16 balloon door. The wrong warp is completed at least 3 times in the speedrun, and ideally, one of the first 3 warps takes you to Dragon Forest in a plane, as warping to Dragon Forest in a plane needs to happen to complete the any percent 11 balloon speedrun run, and I'll explain why later. There's only a 17.5% chance of warping to Dragon Forest in a plane in your first 3 attempts, which are not great odds, and depending on when you warp to Dragon Forest in a plane, dictates the rest of your run. In the event you don't pull this off in your first 3 attempts, you can simply just go back to Hot Top Volcano and try again, but you will lose about 30 to 45 seconds each time, depending if you warp to Dragon Forest or the overworld, and how long it takes you to get out of bounds to wrong warp again in Hot Top Volcano. A player by the name of Obio made this chart that outlines the different orders to complete the trophy races, depending on when you warp to Dragon Forest in a plane. The second order is the fastest overall, with the third order being the next fastest, and that's mainly because both these orders end in Sherbert Island, which happens to be right beside future Funland, and so it's faster to get there after completing all the trophy races compared to leaving from Dragon Forest. In Mr. Ponytale's world record run, he wrong warps to Dragon Forest in a car first, which is not surprising given there's a 75% chance this will happen. And if that happens, speedrunners quickly leave Dragon Forest where an unskippable Taj scene happens. A race against Taj will then start, which can be ended by driving to the middle of the overworld where Taj's mat is. From there, speedrunners honk for Taj, switch to the plane, and fly to Snowflake Mountain to complete the Snowball Valley track, as it's the shortest track to complete in that world, thus earning the Snowflake Mountain trophy thanks to trophy storage. There's actually an alternative way to get the Snowflake Mountain trophy, called Icicle Pyramid early. However, this is a super rare glitch to pull off, even for the most advanced players. Each world, in addition to the 4 tracks and boss race, has a minigame that requires finding a golden key in one of the world's tracks to unlock. This glitch plays on the fact that you can instead lose a minigame in a world rather than winning a race to get the trophy. Instead of trying to explain this glitch, I'll just show you a clip of Mr. Ponytale pulling this off on his very first try.
Yes! Oh my god. Oh my god. It's happening.
Like I said, this glitch is very advanced and is skipped in most speedrun attempts, including Mr. Ponytale's world record run, as it only saves time if executed on the first try. But if done right the first time, it will save 25 seconds on the run, which is pretty significant. With the Snowflake Mountain trophy unlocked, it's time to wrong warp again. That means going back to Dio Domain and completing the trophy race again, only to clip out of bounds in Hot Top Volcano, disrupting the trophy race. The question is, where will Mr. Ponytale warp this time? With a 15% chance, he warps to Dragon Forest in a plane on his second wrong warp, allowing him to continue the run in the most desired order. And when you warp to Dragon Forest in a plane, a very cool thing can happen. You're able to fly off here over the fence, out of bounds and into haunted woods, since the wall is not solid. Actually, you can simply fly into any track in this world, as every track's loading zone is always active and able to be touched, even if the door blocking it is locked. But speedrunners choose to fly into haunted woods since it's the shortest track in Dragon Forest. This is why wrong warping into Dragon Forest in a plane is critical in the speedrun, because with only 11 balloons, you're not able to enter any of the tracks in this world otherwise. With the Dragon Forest trophy unlocked, that leaves only 2 trophies left to collect. The third trophy race completed, regardless of which order you have to play it out, is always Dio Domain, and that's because of a couple of reasons. The first is that by doing trophy storage attempts first, it allows speedrunners to try for the Dragon Plane result earlier in the run. This doesn't save time, but it allows speedrunners to find out earlier if they are on a good run. The second reason is that when speedrunners complete the Dio Domain trophy, they spawn back into Dio Domain, which allows them to start up another trophy storage immediately. Every time a trophy storage is completed, they have to drive back to Dio Domain to start another one, and by doing the Dio Domain trophy third, it makes them only have to travel back to Dio Domain twice instead of 3 times. And then after Dio Domain, Mr. Ponytale finishes off the trophy races with Whale Bay and Sherbert Island. Speedrunners choose Whale Bay because with 11 balloons, the only options in Sherbert Island are Whale Bay and Crescent Moon, and Whale Bay is faster to complete by about 10 seconds. I've been glossing over the races that don't involve any glitches, but I really recommend watching Mr. Ponytale's world record run in full, which I've linked in the description. Look how he almost clears the ship jumping off the whale. Next up is Future Funland, which requires heading to the trophy stand next to the lighthouse. Who else lost their mind when they first learned the lighthouse was secretly a rocket ship? Now, if you think speedrunners complete any tracks in Future Funland, you'd be so wrong, because instead of racing these tracks, they pull off a trick called TT Stomp, which bypasses all the races and gets you straight to WizPig 2. How it works is by talking to TT, which I guess means talking to yourself, and essentially keep doing that, backing up and honking to get his attention with the goal of getting TT to come to a very specific spot where he can clip into the wall, but not just through it, but also up it. You will know you pulled this off when you see TT disappear. This means that he is currently above the ground. At this point, you want to honk for TT at a bit over a 45-degree angle against the wall here, and then hold nothing but the A button. After exiting the text, TT will then come down and stomp you, where you'll then want to release the A button and hold B in backwards. TT stomps you with so much force that you're able to fly up into the air and backwards into the room where the WizPig 2 entrance is. How speedrunners figure this shit out, I have no idea. Apparently this is a very hard and inconsistent skip to pull off, with some deeming it a run killer. And the skips don't stop there. It's the final race of the game and speedrun, WizPig 2. And similar to Hot Top Volcano, this race is completed almost entirely out of bounds. The first thing speedrunners do is grab the blue balloon here on the right of the track. They then wait to use it until they approach the area with the fog and a statue of WizPig on the left. I'm not really sure how to explain it other than using the speed boost and barrel roll to clip into the fog just before the statue. And just like Hot Top Volcano, there's a specific flight pattern and checkpoints to hit while racing out of bounds so that the track registers a lap completed. A good tip here is to make sure you're not flying too deep into the bottom, otherwise the game might consider you too much out of bounds and clip you back in. And that's the story on how speedrunners completely broke Diddy Kong Racing by warping, among other glitches. It truly blows my mind how players can find all these skips and glitches and utilize them to beat the game in record times, such as Mr. Ponytale, who currently has the record time of 36 minutes and 49 seconds. Congratulations to you, Mr. Ponytale, if you're watching. Mr. Ponytale was also a huge help with this video, answering any question I had in much detail, so thank you again, Mr. Ponytale. Again, if you want to check out Mr. Ponytale's world record run, then I've linked his video in the description. And if you too want to get on the leaderboard of the speedrun category, then I highly recommend watching Morg's tutorial video, which I've also linked in the description. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you like the video or the content we do on this channel, then we'd really appreciate a thumbs up, comment, and even a sub. We're also on Patreon if you want to support the channel even more and have your name shouted out at the end of all our videos. And on that note, I want to give a special shout out to Rebecca Lyons, Lay Burb, Puddles Megan, and Koi Koi 13.